Empathy, empathy, empathy. You've got to build empathy, and that's you need to really understand people. Put yourself in their shoes, go and live with those customers who are using the product. See how they're using the product. Are they sitting at ease and using a product, or are they using it in motion, or what are they doing at that point in time? Do they have enough battery? Do they have enough power supply? Do they have enough resources? What's the mind share that your app is essentially taking away from, or what pain point is your app solving for these guys? And are they blessing, or do they have enough? Are they facing any challenges? Is it intuitive enough for them to figure out which way to do, what to do in the app? Which comes via empathy. So you got to really understand your customers. Understand the customers. Be a people person before you become a product manager.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the sixth episode of Product Unfiltered. Joining us today, we have Sumit Kumar Singh, Principal Product Manager at Microsoft and a renowned career coach. Today, Sumit will talk about his experience building products and coaching people to successfully achieve their goals. Sumit, can you please introduce yourself to our listeners?
I think if you ask me, I've had the most fulfilling stage of my careers now as a product manager. And of course, there are a PM's journey is obviously full with tons of imposter syndromes, a lot of self doubt, a lot of you know moments wherein you think that why did I land onto this particular place? But the whole kick and the whole joy of solving a problem and seeing an impact happening in a customer's life, I think I just absolutely love it. So my experience in product management has been absolutely fantastic. Started off with Jabong when truly the whole notion of product management never really existed in India. We started off as a project manager for special projects, and we started off with doing some things. Ended up building India's first last mile company of sorts for an e-commerce company back in 2012. Maybe first of Southeast Asia, because none other e-commerce were like we were leading the entire charter at that point in time. Then became the first one to introduce a mobile based payment at the time of delivery. So when today these guys come at Amazon to make your deliveries, take your signatures, the first version of that app was made by me. And we rolled it out for all of the folks in Japan. And then I moved to payments, mobile payments, and Geo Money. From Geo Money to Make My Trip, Times India. Times have been a fantastic experience because we're building a loyalty platform for the whole of Times Internet. So Economic Times, Times of India, Navbharat, Ghana, Dine Out, etc., etc. And as you would imagine, different products, different people using it, different personas, different times of the day. So it eventually ended up turning into a gamification platform or a gamification engine, which could essentially boost any of your key KRAs or KPIs uh, that you wanted for your business at in that particular quarter, and we could just change it on the fly, getting the right kind of partnerships. So on one side, we were doing this gamification engine. On the other side, we're building a marketplace for all of these offers. So we went out in the market to get offers for these, either 10 points, 50 points, 100 points, Bose speakers for some 10,000 points. And we would also tell you how to kind of reach to those 10,000, and what's the next target, etc., etc. So had a great run. We grew the number of logged in users by a decent double digit growth, uh, decent double digit multiplier growth, actually.
Yeah.
10x, 15x, that kind of a number. We had a lot of fun. I particularly had a lot of fun. And then I moved to Harvard. I did my executive MBA, came back. I was still, product management is something which still near and dear to me. And I was I was in Jakarta doing some other companies and startups. I came back because of COVID. I started building something of my own called World of Webinar, which was a webinar discovery platform. And we had, I still remember it was one day, I think 29th or 30th of September, wherein we had 995 webinars listed for that one particular day of 29th or 30th September. And we're really hoping that we would cross 1,000 webinars and we'd probably make it a big bang post. So the creative was ready, everything was ready. We're just hoping we get 5 more webinars from somewhere.
Okay.
Never happened. And then Elon Musk came and tweeted about Clubhouse. So the world moved from webinars to the audio format. I was about to close some funds. These guys said that okay, let's wait and watch for Clubhouse to essentially either die down or at least find a market fit.
Mm-hmm.
By then, I had started depleting my savings, and I had already kind of started to feel the heat of the market. And I hosted somebody on Clubhouse for one of the sessions, and that person reached out to me, "Hey, we have some roles in Microsoft. You want to come?" So I decided to move to Microsoft, and it's been a fun learning. It's a very different culture from what you see in startups. The processes are very different. The ways you manage a project are very different. We've heard of Trello, Jira, Confluence, Asana
Mm-hmm.
here in the startup world, right? We have something called as Azure DevOps. It's more like a ticket management system for technology folks to manage their sprints, and that's where we do product management. There are some tweaks on top of it. There is a learning curve to that also. So they're just also those processes. It's a bit slow, but clearly when Microsoft releases the product out in the market, it hits that scale, which typically startups are still trying to find an
Mm-hmm.
MVP or market fit, so to say. So it's just a mixed bag of experiences.
Sumit, this was something which, as aspiring product managers, we always have in mind to start a career. To start a career, which should be the desired part to go with? Should it be startups or should be the big corporates? So, actually, talking about your experience working both with startups like Jabong and then transitioning into big tech Microsoft. What were some challenges in both these worlds which you faced during your journey? Can you highlight some of the challenges?
Interesting scope of challenges, actually, if you ask me, and not all of it is setup oriented. Um, when I started with Jabong, the whole product management space within India was very nuanced. It was too new, very limited resources to reach out to for guidance, so to say. So that is one
Mm-hmm.
aspect of it. What do I do in product management? How to kind of grow, build your career, etc., etc. That is one aspect of it. The other aspect, which is true for all setups in 0 to 1 space or 1 to 10 space, is that because you are starting on a very interesting problem, there you may not find experts in that area to really give you dope of that magic potion that do this and will fix your problem.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a challenge. When I started off with the logistics company, I did not know anything about logistics. So I went
Mm-hmm.
out in that 48 degrees of Delhi heat with a 35 kg bag on my back and the same bike that these guys use, just to test how that experience of using an app in the sun is, and realize that the app doesn't even last 2 hours because I need to use the app with 100% brightness,
Mm-hmm.
and the hands are greasy. These guys have thick thumb syndromes. It's not easy, and these guys are out in the market for one single video for 3 hours. My mobile app dies in 2 hours,
Mm-hmm.
which leaves these guys in a complete state of limbo. That how do they complete it? These experiences something which I can talk about it now because I've done it and I've built it.
Mm-hmm.
Back then, there was no expert who would tell me how to build logistics products. Like today, if you go and talk to some folks, you have tons of great payment products. You have Paytm, you have Netflix, Amazons of the world, and there are some amazing folks out there who can give you enough dope on how to build Paytm, payment products.
Mm-hmm.
But back in the days, didn't have, and that is true for even for today for any of the 0 to 1 problem. There could be someone who's trying to solve a cross-border remittance problem
Mm-hmm.
or a cross-border loyalty platform. I think some of these travel companies are trying to solve for that. So you go to Thailand or you go to Singapore, you get some cash back. Now you're in Thailand and you want to use that cash back. You may not be able to do it because then there are these cross-border
Cross border.
issues with
Yeah.
using Singapore dollars in Thailand, and how do you really move the money from one geography to another?
Mm-hmm.
Somebody's really solving for that, but you really have to go down, get dirty to really get a sense from both a regulation standpoint as well as from a consumer standpoint. That's the other aspect of it. This piece essentially kind of gets a little covered when you're going into a large setup.
Mm-hmm.
You can find subject matter experts because there have been folks who've been exploring that space for the last 15 years. last 20 years. So you can talk to them, they will give you some dope on it. At the end of the day, you have to decide that which part of the problem do you want to solve, how long is it going to take, how do you define that particular problem. So I think that is there, but the speed with which I can move in a startup, I cannot move at that speed in a large company for the sake of just following and adhering to the processes. And those processes are there for a reason.
Yeah.
Like there are people who are making a living out of finding loopholes in Microsoft's product and policies. So you have to be really, really covered. I mean, this is not true for companies like Zalando or a HelloFresh or a Namshi in Dubai or Lazada in Singapore. These guys can really run fast and capture the market.
Mm-hmm.
So the challenges are many folds depending on which side of the lens you look at. In There's just too much of stakeholder management in a small startup. You are in the thick of the action. Versus, I feel that if you're in a large company, you are kind of siloed. You have limited interactions with people and across teams. It's not like a huge party and then you're doing.
That's really interesting, Sumit, to understand your perspective in that. But I would also love to understand what was your thought process at the time when you were entering the domain or entering the industry. Right now, you have a good perspective on it because you have seen both the worlds. But for someone who's starting out fresh, what should they think about before entering?
That's a brilliant question, actually. When I was in IIM Lucknow in 2008, 2010, I was running a online boutique shop. Was a business that I was doing, online boutique shop for candles.
Mm-hmm.
And we were also in India, we were among the earliest to set up a web store inside Facebook. So that was a product that they launched, which eventually became Facebook pages and then the business pages, etc. And you could, have those orders. So while I was doing that, I realized that, I want to be in technology.
Mm-hmm.
That's my calling. I want to be in internet domain. I want to be closer to the customers. So my first job after IIM Lucknow was in a chemicals company, essentially in Calcutta, and I was just counting the number of cylinders coming in and moving out of the facility. It was a logistics role, so-called strategic marketing. They were making gases, so counting the number of cylinders was a core part of it. I didn't enjoy much. That
Mm-hmm.
whole setup, the vibes, the DNA of that industry was very different than what I experienced while working on my own startup while I was at Amtech now. And then I realized that I want to be in the tech space. I want to be in a .com or a e-commerce space, which is where somebody reached out to me and helped me connect with the Jabong guys, and I moved. I absolutely loved that opportunity. But was it product management from day zero? Perhaps not, because product management never really existed back then.
Mm-hmm.
So I took up an opportunity which came my way and I jumped onto it.
Mm-hmm.
And I tried to give all that I had, like went all in to ensure that there was this one function of logistics and we really wanted to test it out, scale it up. And then eventually this function got sold to Snapdeal for $20 million.
Mm-hmm.
So we really kind of did it. So if you ask me, what's my advice to people? If you're looking to make a career in product management, read these two books before you really decide for yourself. One is Hooked by Nee Ryan.
Mm-hmm.
It will talk about the product thinking of how products are done and how you kind of think about getting people, the triggers, the action. That kind of gives you a very high level breakdown into typically a user journey into interacting with products. Second is Inspired by Marty Kagan, who talks about what are different roles inside of a product org, so to say. How does a data science interact with the product manager? How does a designer interact with the product manager? You'll get a sense of what does a PM do? Where does he fit inside the organization? How does he really kind of do it? At a very high level, these two books. So getting a sense of where do you want to land into is another challenge. Which domain do you want to do? But now the question that you will have as a startup, as someone who's starting off, do I wait for a dream job because the market is bad?
Mm-hmm.
Or do I take any product management title that is coming my way and I just jump into it because now at least I'll be a product manager in XYZ company that tomorrow when I go out, I would still be called a project manager, a product manager.
Mm-hmm.
I would not be called as a QA who's turned into blah, 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 right? And what I'm realizing, the more I speak to people, especially true for the current scenario, and this is being more practical and more pragmatic about it. If you are getting a role as a product manager in any company, take that
Mm-hmm.
because the market is bad. But as the scenario today is that there are challenges in the market and there's just tons of competition. You have folks who are coming from consulting also to apply for a product manager role. There are data science guys, there are QA guys, there are marketing guys, there are designers. Everybody wants to become a product manager,
Yeah.
right? So I would say prepare hard on those product management design questions and execution questions. There is no two ways to it. That is a prerequisite. Next, whichever job you get, just take it
Okay.
and help others.
Mm-hmm.
Purely because the more you help others, the more better network that you get, etc., etc. So, how do you get into a role if that is a question? Because how do you decide which company to? How do you choose? There are different kind of product management roles inside of companies. There is a data product manager. There is this person essentially works on a lot of data. It's a backend kind of a role. You're working with data teams to set up data services, data layers, and data products, etc., etc. That's one aspect of it.
Mm-hmm.
There is a B2B product management role wherein you're building products for other businesses. These kind of business patterns or these kind of roles essentially work very closely with the sales teams or
Mm-hmm.
account management teams. So account management goes talks to the businesses. Then there are product platform as a product or a PaaS or a SaaS, Freshworks, Zoho, for example, Yellow.ai. All of these are again interesting products, but the nuance of product management is slightly more warped.
Mm-hmm.
There are AI based product managers who would typically think of the AI ones, and Web3 is another. So,
Yeah.
cutting the story short, every setup has some nuances to the product management role, the way they would execute a role, and the way they would design a role.
Mm-hmm.
It is important that you understand which setup you want to apply to and which setup kind of, you would be excited about.
Yeah.
At the age in which these fresh college grads come out, may not have seen a lot of life. And in case if they may not have seen a lot of life, they would typically have limited set of learnings and experiences, and they would still be exploring.
Mm-hmm.
So talk to people, explore a lot of it, build something on the side. I mean, if you have time on college, I would strongly suggest to build something on the side. It does not take a lot of coding today to build a product and take it out to the market. You have Glide apps or Webflow and so many other no-code applications.
Mm-hmm.
Build a product, pick up a problem that you think today that your student community is facing.
Mm-hmm.
Build a product, take it out, see if people are willing to pay $5, $10 every month for your services. Who knows? You might just get the next big funding of $1 million. You don't even
Yeah.
need to go and
Mm-hmm.
do a product management job. But even if you have to do a product management job, you would have gone through the whole cycle of talking to the customers, building something, putting additional filters in that whole thing. The payment is failing. Okay, how do I go back and fix the payment? Or the email is not coming, the confirmation is not coming. I dropped an email, I did not get a confirmation, blah, blah, blah. There's tens of thousands of
Mm-hmm.
feedback that you get. Just going through the series of feedback, going back to the desktop and then fixing it, releasing a new version of it, that itself is a great experience. And that is true what product management is all about.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, Sumit, talking about this very interesting part which you mentioned, building something on your own when you are in the school. And that is something many product managers recommend aspiring PMs that go out, build something. So during this process, a common question for aspiring PMs are, how do we build it? Are there any tools which we can use to fail fast, learn faster, and build it?
100%. I built World of Webinar on a no-code platform called Glide Apps. We grew from 0 to 25,000 unique users in 5 months, zero marketing budget.
Mm-hmm.
So if I could do it, I'm sure everybody can do it. There is bubble.io, Webflow, Adalo, Glide Apps, and you just put in, and there are some Notion Notion is a great tool. Notion again is a no code. Again,
Mm-hmm.
you can build the entire website. You can do user flows in there. And honestly, the easiest of all the tools, so to say, to collect the early feedback is PowerPoint. So Shopify, Wix, there are tons of these website builders. There are chat builders. There are mobile app builders that you can use. Any of those.
Mm-hmm.
Just build it, take it out to the market, man. It takes weekend to write these apps. So
Exactly.
super easy.
We also see, Sumit, that you haven't left any stone unturned. You had an IIT degree, then you went to IIM, then you went to Harvard. So we wanted to understand from you, does having a master's degree is really important to be a successful product manager, or are there some other important factors which one should account for?
There are a couple of nuances to a product manager's profile, so to say. Defining product management or defining a problem space is one part of it. Sizing up the opportunity of how big that problem space is another aspect of it.
Mm-hmm.
Coming up with a proposal or a solution is third aspect of it. And then, of course, the execution part of it. While you can get better over, with the whole definition of what the problem space is, coming up with the opportunity size and market size and putting those frameworks of water five forces, etc., you can learn on YouTube and you can do it.
Mm-hmm.
However, it takes a while for these methods to kind of become a DNA of sorts. You will probably find a lot of very successful entrepreneurs with no MBA,
Mm-hmm.
but maybe you will not find enough successful PMs without an MBA. Because while you're in, and by doing an MBA, you come back and you know those frameworks, because at the end of the day, you kind of are working in a charter and then you have to define a space. So defining a space, so how big the market size is, which kind of North Star metrics to follow through, what structures, and because now you're executing faster.
Mm-hmm.
Your KRA as a product manager is to execute with finesse. It is not to define a company strategy and then lead forward. That's the founder who's doing it,
Yeah.
right? So if you have an MBA, it is definitely an edge, but it's not something which is mandated. You can still grow, like folks who've been in design or in say QA, for example, 5, 6 years, they want to become a product manager. They can also become a product manager.
Mm-hmm.
They will probably, they've never discussed market sizing or opportunities or Porter 5 forces or complementary supplementary products or, what is an IDA framework if you've
Mm-hmm.
done your marketing 101. So talking to another person who's gone through the same rigor, who's gone through Kotler and kind of understands how market is defined. Now, this guy who's not done any of this, he's coming from QA. It's a
Mm-hmm.
completely new world for him. And then
Okay.
as a PM, you have a very different lingo. You talk about growth, you talk about North Star, you talk about challenges and conflicts, etc., etc. All of those lingos again are things that you can learn. Of course, you can become better at it.
Mm-hmm.
But if you want to hit the ground running, an MBA helps. You can slowly and gradually get better. Probably in 2 years you will reach there. But 2 years versus 2 years in MBA, and then you actually hit 5 steps ahead.
So now just taking a deep dive into your past, we'll also want to understand what was one of the biggest mistakes which you have made in your product career before, which you think you need to rectify now, and how would you rectify it?
Actually learned along the way. You make a mistake, you learn it, and then you kind of improve, and then you move forward.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good product manager essentially would do. You would not want to get hung up on I will not solve this problem now. I'll wait for 10 years and come back and solve it.
Mm-hmm.
So there was some very interesting learnings. Like when I was at Jabong, I realized that, and that's something which I still see a lot of PMs do. They love to sit in an office and not talk to the customers.
Mm-hmm.
And that is one of the biggest mistakes that people do. I learned it really early in my days with Jabong. I built an app which was like fancy looking colors and graphics and everything, thinking that, hey, we've done this amazing work and we take it out to the logistics guys. Now, these guys were like 12th pass or maybe 8th pass or something. They're using a smartphone for the first time, maybe back in 2012. Of course, now they're more handy. But realize that when they're out in the sun and these high contrast colors would not really show up because
Yeah.
The readability is a challenge,
Mm-hmm.
which we never really anticipated because we thought that, hey, this is a great app and we're sitting in, AC room. It
Yeah.
looks so fancy. So we went back and we changed the colors to really the blues and the reds to keep it like
Mm-hmm.
very subtle and to be even like readable. The central spectrum, so to say, the yellows. Then we realized, okay, the thick thumb syndromes, the inputs will not happen because people don't remember the username, passwords, etc., etc. So we
Mm-hmm.
went back, changed the input of a user login to a QR code based scan. I'm talking about 2012 when QR codes barely existed.
Yeah.
And we introduced a QR code based login for these guys back then. You have to build those people connections. At the end of the day, product management is less about technology and more about people.
Very true.
The time you don't understand people, they will not tell you what problem are you trying to solve for.
Mm-hmm.
Because at the end of the day, when somebody's paying you for something, they're not paying you for the product that you've built. They're buying a solution for their pain point.
Mm-hmm.
So if your pain point is not defined properly, which is because you've not met or
Interesting.
you've not found the right kind of research, you've not been enough close friends, blah blah blah, whatever that be, you've not understood the feedback properly. There are hundreds of reasons. Till the time you don't do that, you will never be able to define the pain point correctly. If the pain point is not defined, the solution will never be able to elevate that pain.
Yeah.
If you're not able to elevate that pain, they will never pay for your pain, for the solutions.
Mm-hmm.
All the experiences which you shared resonate a lot with how an entrepreneur creates a product from scratch and takes it into the market. And that brings us to the next question, that is, being a product manager, does it give you an extra edge to actually start your own venture in the future? Have you seen
100%. 100%. You go and join a startup in a 0 to 1 stage, 5 years down the line, you will be itching to build your own company. 110%. I can guarantee you on that.
Mm-hmm.
and what do you think, Sumit, are the skills which as a product manager you gain throughout the process which really helps you starting your own venture?
Storytelling.
Okay.
You learn everything else, hard skills, data, blah, blah, blah. But the real thing that you learn, which will eventually lead you to the next big eureka moment, is storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
The small improvements have led you to actually hit that moonshot that you would have started with. That really, this is the impact that I made. If you're
Mm-hmm.
as a PM, you're able to define your moonshot moments from the time when you're defining a product. That moonshot is what will get you the funding. That moonshot is what gets you these investors excited. That moonshot is what eventually makes an entrepreneur out of what you, because you would eventually go out and say that, hey, let's build this product. Let's try to solve this product. Eventually, 5 years down the line, this is how the ecosystem will start to work.
Mm-hmm. True.
That is what will excite an entrepreneur as an investor, as an angel investor who would eventually come and give you the first seed round or the first check. He needs to be excited. He will always be. He will never be excited about how many Jira tickets you raised.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right? Anybody can do that. He'll be excited about what problem statement that you tried to solve for and what was the impact that you made. And eventually, how many people did end up using that product.
Mm-hmm.
And that leads you to that storytelling mode, which eventually you reach.
So, Sumit, what would be three critical skill sets which you would suggest every PM should have?
Design understanding, to have a critical eye into which is a good user journey, which is not a good user journey. And that's very easy to develop, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Being able to play around with some Figma basic, you spend a weekend and you learn it, not very difficult. That's
Mm-hmm.
one. Second is data, understanding data and just going deep into data. Uh, Building just millions of those data cuts. You just keep slicing and dicing the data there. And if you're able to get those stories out, if you're able to just understand the fabric of this customer segment, that is the most important thing. And of course, it's not a skill set that you can develop. It comes as you go along. It's a soft skill. So understanding people, understanding problem statements and defining to be able to define problem statement, which is more like the business side of it.
Yeah.
So we typically say that, product is part of three. So you have business, technology, and design.
Mm-hmm.
There is a fourth which is now coming, which is data.
Okay.
Because data is becoming increasingly more important than just the business part of it. These four skill sets essentially play a huge role, and you should have a great understanding on all four of them.
Very
Uh,
true. Yeah. And in fact, talking about these four skill sets, design, business, data, and tech, which is your favorite, Sumit? Which team would you like to actually work with being a product manager?
so data kind of, as a layer, you cannot really escape that. You have to have data always.
Mm-hmm.
I love to work with the business teams and design teams better. Uh, Tech is something which I've been there, done that, a lot of it. Now I don't really go down to the sprint levels. While in my current role, I do look at the sprints, but as you move up the value chain, you don't get down to the sprints and then look at each ticket, which one are you doing, which ones are you not doing, and so on and so forth. So over a period of time, you kind of become a little more alienated to the tech execution.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what's happening with me also. But business and understanding which customer segment or problem to solve, so defining the problem statement, data, and design.
Okay.
So the way to kind of get better at design. This is something which I always ask people to do as an exercise. You go on App Store every week with a new theme, and there are tons of themes on an App Store: finance, travel, bookkeeping, personal, productivity, blah blah blah. In any of the themes, you start downloading the top 5 apps on that particular day. Take a week to go through those 5 apps and just see, because in productivity, if there are 5 apps, then they're probably, in a way, they're solving similar kind of a problem. So their onboarding journey, you use these products a little, you will get a good understanding of which is a good user experience, which is a good user onboarding, which gives you a better brand recall, etc., etc. You do this for 1 month, 2 months, and pick up a new theme every week. You pick up travel another week, or you pick up personal finance another week, or you pick up investments in the next week, or you do OTA, or whatever, ticket booking and some. By the end of these 1 month or 2 months, even if you take 1 month, you do 5 apps in a week, and you're playing with these. By the end of this 1 month, you would have done at least 20 of these, if not less.
Mm-hmm.
If you're playing with 20 apps and just actually with a very curious eye, you are looking at which is a better onboarding journey, which gave me a username, password versus an OTP versus a QR code based login versus a Facebook login or a Face ID login, which was an easy setup when I could really get the product value versus which is a long tedious, took my passport, PAN card, photograph, biometric, still made me to wait for 24 hours. You will generate a great sense of what's a good UX, what's a bad UX,
Mm-hmm.
what's a good onboarding versus what's a bad onboarding, what's a good brand recall and why versus a bad brand recall and why not.
Mm-hmm.
So if and this is like, and you keep doing it, if you're able to continue doing it, you'll just become better and better at it. But just to spend this 1 month just playing these apps, you will have so much value created for yourself, and document your journey. Take screenshots, put it on Medium, share it on LinkedIn, tag 5 people in that company. It'll also give you a lot of that public value.
Yeah.
Your social reputation will go up. You know, this is just a win-win for everyone. And then you can do tear downs eventually. Then they
Mm-hmm.
say these Walmart versus Amazon, or Costco loyalty versus Amazon Prime.
Mm-hmm.
Just do a tear down and see what kind of works, what doesn't work, and how you want to kind of
Mm-hmm.
which one is better and which one is not.
Mhm.
And make a paper, go on LinkedIn, tag the CEOs and the product managers and everyone in Costco and Walmart.
Mm-hmm.
They notice the work that you're doing.
Yeah. Also, Sumit, I wanted to ask this question to you. So, in our B schools or in our master's degree, there are a lot of frameworks which we are taught on regular basis. But do you see those frameworks being applicable in the market also, or it's just in the theoretical words and it does not replicate to the business world?
So I can comment on the basis of my MBA
Yeah.
experience, and because I'm not very relevant at this point in time, I'm not too updated. I hope they are, because that's the reason why they are being taught. But so marketing, all the IDA,
Mm-hmm.
Porter's 5 forces, that's one of the most common
Yeah.
one. A breakdown in terms of a guesstimation framework is often used because you're always sizing up the opportunities. Corporate valuation, cash flows, P by E ratios, and there are tons of other ratios. Some of them, depending on which kind of a setup you often go about it. RISE framework to prioritize your product backlog is often used.
Mm-hmm.
So there are tons of those frameworks which are often used, I'm sure, and I'm very confident that you are being
Yeah.
taught so many more frameworks that you may not find it very relevant immediately, but over a period of time you will all get encounter. So my hypothesis with frameworks is that if you're stuck in a problem and you're not able to figure out a way, you apply frameworks. It may not be the best answer, but it will definitely be one of the correct answers which will lead you to the right direction. It'll
Mm-hmm.
not fail you, if I
Yeah,
can
true.
say
Yeah.
that.
So thank you so much, Sumit, for sharing such great insights. We would also love to know what are some of the key resources which you follow to keep yourself updated in the product management space and about the market in general.
Mashable, TechCrunch, Product Tank are definitely some of the top ones. And then, of course, you have VC Circle, uh, Inc. 42, Your Story, which is more India specific, Pitch Book, and then Kanjbase are more about investments and otherwise, which are more US specific. But if you're in general around TechCrunch, Mashable, and Product Tank, you kind of get a sense of what's happening in the market.
Mm-hmm.
And Twitter, of course, and LinkedIn. If you're following some good guys on LinkedIn, they keep talking about the latest trends, latest companies. So that's typically what keeps me updated.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you for sharing that. My last question to you would be if you had to share a success mantra for a PM, what would that be?
Empathy, empathy, empathy. You've got to build empathy, and that's you need to really understand people. Put yourself in their shoes, go and live with those customers who are using the product, see how they're using the product. Are they sitting at ease and using a product, or are they using it in motion, or what are they doing at that point in time? Do they have enough battery? Do they have enough power supply? Do they have enough resources? What's the mind share that your app is essentially taking away from, or what pain point is your app solving for these guys? And are they blessing, or do they have enough, are they facing any challenges? Is it intuitive enough for them to figure out which way to do, what to do in the app? Which comes by empathy. So you've got to really understand your customers. Just understand the customers. Be a people person before you become a product manager.
That officially brings us to the end of today's podcast. Hope you all enjoyed today's episode and our discussion has helped learn something new. Stay tuned for more such exciting episodes. Thank you so much for tuning into Product Unfiltered.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, guys. Great conversation. Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you.